started. Hello, everyone, and welcome. Today, we are hosting our first statewide webinar. Thank you so much for joining us for Building a Positive Relationship with Your School, presented by just a few of our amazing parent mentors in Ohio. I'm Ashley Thoreen, the parent mentor in Miami County, and today I have with me Dee Marks from Dublin City Schools, Jacqueline Halley, who serves Champaign County Schools, Rachel Barnhart from Muskingum Valley ESC, and Dawn Millhouse, who serves both Centerville and Oakwood Schools. Each of these ladies will be presenting today along with monitoring our chat log for questions. Before we go any further, I wanted to cover a few housekeeping items for you today. You're all muted, so please use the Q&A feature to ask questions or comment at any time. This presentation is being recorded and will be available later at our website for on-demand viewing. That way, if you have to jump off for any reason, you can revisit this at a later date. Now let's get into the agenda for our meeting. So here's our agenda for today. We will cover topics on how to communicate effectively with your school staff and how to work with them, creating that partnership attitude. We want everyone in the same boat, rowing in the same direction. We'll give you tips on how to keep the focus on the benefits for the student and their needs, as well as tackling how to handle those difficult conversations that come up and cover additional resources for families. Lastly, we will turn off our recording and open up for live question and answers if time allows. Again, thank you so much for joining us. Now that we have that out of the way, I'll hand this over to Dee to get us started.
Thank you, Ashley. In order to understand how to effectively communicate, we must first cover the concept of what is communication. Each of us probably has a certain definition in our minds about what communication is for us. As Ashley mentioned, we'd like to make sure that all of us are on the same page. The next few slides will help us think about the whole picture of communication and how it impacts school relationships. Simply put, communication is a two-way process of reaching mutual understanding in which people not only exchange information, but also create and share meaning together. Now consider the business definition listed here. It's a key function of management. An organization cannot operate without effective communication between all levels and departments. Sound like an IEP meeting? It does to me. We have found as parent mentors that it's best to use a combination of these two definitions to make sure that communication is truly effective for all parties. By keeping the business model in our mind, we remain professional and recognize at the IEP table there are many levels of management represented, and each one of them operates differently, but towards the same goal, the support and success of the student. There are four forms of communication. As most of you are aware, the first one that comes to mind is verbal communication, which consists of sound, words, languages, and speech. Second are the nonverbal forms of communication like touch, sign language, tone of voice, and body language. Research shows, though, that when it comes to communication, the body language presented is the one that holds the most value and is the most trusted. That's why it's so important for us to be aware of the messages that our body language is sending. The third form is anything that is written, obviously items like letters, reports, emails, and memos. And finally, we have visual communication, which includes photographs, signs, and symbols, and of course, the largest visual form of communication, the World Wide Web. So now that we have a basic foundation of what communication is and the different forms, how do we make our communication effective? The good thing is that regardless of which type of communication you are using, the same rules apply overall. It is imperative to listen, really listen. Often we are listening and at the same time we're formulating our response. Unfortunately, that means we are not actively listening and we may miss something really important. Give yourself the time to listen, then process, then respond based on all of the information that you heard. Another important strategy is to be sure that you ask questions, especially to clarify that you understand what has been stated thus far in the meeting. When all team members are on the same page, we can work more efficiently, collaborate more effectively, and come up with better solutions. Taking notes can not only help us remain focused within the meeting, but often will provide answers to the questions that we think of later. Keeping good notes also can help to make sure that the team remembers the meeting and the conversation in the same way. A prior written notice should basically mimic most of your notes if both you and the school are on the same page. Another great use of notes is that if the team gets stuck on a particular topic or an item, the notes can serve to remind everyone about what you agreed upon. Often, the item that is disagreed upon can be momentarily tabled. In this case, pointing out all of the mutually agreed upon items can help to serve to take the sting out of a temporary disagreement. As we all know, when a group of people gathers together, it can be easy to go off topic at a moment's notice. So be specific in your questions and your request. I recommend sharing these and any supporting data with the team ahead of the meeting as an agenda suggestion. This will help the team to prepare, focus on your particular concerns from their perspective, and it ensures that you are given enough time to share your perspective too. So we've sent our questions and we're heading into that face-to-face meeting. This is where things can go really well and everyone walks away confident that the student is well served, or it can go really wrong due to things not even related to the student. Some top recommendations that I'd like to share on this are presented on this slide. It can be difficult for many of us, but maintaining eye contact shows the person who is speaking that you are giving them the respect that they are due as the expert that they are. Just because we aren't in agreement doesn't take away the value of their expertise or their role. By giving respect, we earn respect. It also shows that we are actively engaged in what they are saying, which is exactly what effective communication is. Remember to pay attention to your body language. As indicated previously, if you make the statement, "I agree with that," but then you have your arms crossed and you're leaning away from the table, is your body language in line with your words? No, it isn't. And the body language is what our brains are designed to pay attention to the most. It's a survival skill that is ingrained. We can sometimes send the wrong message without even meaning it. For instance, I'm often cold in meetings and I cross my arms to keep warm. So I've learned to either bring my sweater, or sometimes when I forget it, to simply announce to the team, "I am feeling cold. Is anyone else?" That makes it clear to the team why my arms are crossed, thereby avoiding that misinterpretation. Another important consideration is to remember to minimize distractions. Checking your phone, typing on your laptop, even clicking your pen can make it look like you're not invested in the meeting. In fact, I usually recommend that only 1 to 2 people are on their laptops during a meeting. One to take notes for the prior written notice, and the second person to project the IEP on the screen. I would say to be careful about making assumptions about laptop usage, though. I have been in a meeting where a principal opened up her laptop and started typing. The parent's assumption was that the principal was taking care of other business, when in fact she was looking up the student's schedule to see if a classroom change could be made. We all know what they say about assumptions, but with appropriate mannerisms in a meeting, we can reduce the number of them that we promote. When writing an email or a memo, these key points will help you communicate more effectively. Be sure to write for comprehension. In other words, use common language, paraphrase what you understood from previous communications, and allow time for the written communication to sit for a bit and then reread it. Does it ask the question without emotion? Does it sound professional? Does it meet the test of being beneficial for both parties in regards to supporting forward movement? So think first, write, reread, and then send later. Summarizing is a great way to be sure that your understanding is the same as those who are also in the meeting. Summary notes can be used to catch someone up who may have had to miss the meeting or leave early. The best teams understand that each other's perspectives, even if they don't agree on the next best step at the moment. The mutual understanding, though, is a great foundation to build upon to find the best route to the outcome that everyone wants for the student. Here are some pointers that will help when communicating by email, daily notebooks, or text. These modes of communication work well for sharing routine information, making specific requests, summarizing past actions, and showing appreciation to a staff member. However, written communication does not work well for times when a lengthy explanation of a situation or event is needed, or as a way to solve a complex problem. In fact, due to inaccurate interpretation, it can sometimes make the situation even worse. A face-to-face meeting often works better for these items. It's important for you to make copies of your original documents and send only the copy. Hold on to the original in a file. As we know, things get lost or they could be put in a file that's not available when it's needed. By maintaining the original copy, you ensure that you have it whenever it's needed and for whoever you need to share it with. And like I've mentioned earlier, think first, send later. If your letter is written in anger, it's most likely going to cause the person it was sent to become defensive. This does not lead to the outcome you want because it often delays finding a good solution. Being able to problem solve together and learning to collaborate benefits the student in the long run, not just for the moment. And it's an opportunity that we all should strive for, even in the times that are hard. The biggest communication problem is that we do not listen to understand, we listen to reply. Read that again. Let it sink in. This quote is so important. We all do it, but if we want to be excellent communicators, we need to be conscious of this inherent fault and actively try to overcome it. So we've learned the basics of how to effectively communicate. What else should we think about? How about the attitude we bring to every meeting if we want to help develop a partnership? An attitude where we are engaged together in the same activity, or in simpler terms, as Ashley said earlier, we are in the same boat, rowing together towards a shared goal. That's a partnership. However, developing a partnership is not easy. In order to do it, we have to think of the barriers that each of us bring to the table. We need to keep in mind that our perceptions are our reality, but everyone else has their own perceptions. Neither is wrong. They are just different and based on experiences that we've each had previously. As parents, it's important to consider barriers that educators may experience in regards to developing partnerships. They often lack training in how to involve parents. There's cultural differences or language differences that exist. There's a lack of time to get done what needs to get done. And sometimes the misinterpretation of a parent's actions or response can happen. For instance, making the assumption that a parent doesn't care about the IEP process because they don't come to the meeting. This might be a parent who works 2 jobs to keep food on the table for her children, or doesn't have paid time off and can't come to a meeting during the school day. This parent cares, but their priority at the time has to be their whole family. As an educator, it's especially relevant to develop the capacity to think the best of all parents. It's important to remember that educators are human. They feel, they care, they work hard, and they do take pride in their work. Sometimes they may feel that their work is being criticized or that they are being personally attacked. When things are taken personally, it's hard to see anything but what we are feeling in the moment. As parents, we understand that and we have all been there. Educators also feel that way, and it can become a barrier to building a strong partnership. There are also barriers that you, as parents, face when considering education partnerships. First of all, let's think about the special education law. It's complicated. Even educators and administrators struggle to agree upon the interpretation of many of the laws. And yet, parents often feel that they are expected to understand it in order to effectively be a team member. That's just one part where the processes in special education can be overwhelming and intimidating for parents. Think of all the acronyms, the types of different related services, the tests discussed in an evaluation team report. This feeling of not understanding can inhibit a parent's participation in a large meeting because they don't want to look unprepared or uneducated. Like with educators, parents can become emotional and take things personally. This is their child, so it's hard for them to take the emotional factor out of things. But it is important that we try to remember that everyone at the table cares about the student and they do want what's best. Cultural differences and language barriers exist for all members of the team, including parents. Both parents and educators have negative previous experiences from IEP meetings, and that impacts how they might react in a current meeting. Letting go of previous experiences is hard, but it's also one of the best ways for a team to grow together in a partnership. Just as your child learns that you will be upset with them for certain actions at a specific moment, and yet you still love them throughout life, educators make mistakes, but we still need to help them feel valued and respected throughout the student's educational journey. So, what else should you know? As a parent mentor, as an educator, as an administrator, we all need to up our empathy. We are all human. We all have good days and bad days. Consider the teacher that might have a child at home sick, and she's worried because she can't be there with her child. Wouldn't your mind struggle to be fully engaged in the meeting if that was you? Have you ever struggled to be 100% at work? We need to consider that no one is ever 100%, so we can't realistically expect school staff to be that either. Now, change that word from educator to parent, and it's the same outcome. We would be worried about our child. Once again, we are human. We need to respect the rules of human nature, and when working with others, it's important to try to see the world through their eyes, appreciate them as human beings, try to understand their feelings, and then attempt to communicate your understanding. This empathetic approach will support your role as an effective communicator and as a true partner on the team. This brings us to the next part of our training. What exactly makes a great team? Here's Dawn to share some information with you on what makes a great team.
Thanks, Dee. So what does make a great team? Each person on your child's team is unique with different skills, personalities, priorities, and experiences. This is a good thing. It allows for teams to be more creative, and if conflict arises, then creative solutions lead to team growth. If you understand these differences in each individual and how they impact the team process, you'll be able to work more effectively with each team member and the team as a whole. Your IEP team should consist of a general education teacher, an intervention specialist, a district representative, and any related service people such as OT, PT, adaptive PE, or a speech therapist. You can invite a friend, a parent mentor, Ohio Coalition specialist, or an advocate. You or the school can also include your County Board of Developmental Disabilities Services, SSA, and or a transition specialist. If you are asking the team to consider something outside of the box, then try to support the team by sharing research, models, and resources on how this has worked previously in another situation or school setting. Don't spring it and expect an immediate answer, but rather share your information and ask for a meeting in the near future to discuss the thoughts each team member has about this new idea. Being upfront and honest about your ideas, concerns, and feelings allows you to be seen as a team player. Remember that the IEP team is multidisciplinary. And again, this is a good thing. Each person brings a different wealth of information to the table, which opens up many more doors to creative and individualized solutions. Some members of the team have information about your child specifically. Some have information about relevant services. Others have information about personnel and building schedules, and others have information about specific processes like the IEP or ETR. Not everyone is expected to know it all. If a question arises about an area of expertise not represented on the team, it is okay to request that that person join the team. Make sure that the people you include have valuable input to offer and that they understand how the process works. Also, keep in mind that a child often is different at home than at school. This can create some tension in a team when one side doesn't see or can't relate to what the other is saying. In this case, sharing videos or specific examples can help. This is especially helpful when considering skills that a child can do in one environment but doesn't exhibit in a different environment. Knowing that fundamental skills are present helps the team make proactive and challenging goals. Don't assume that the person with the most experience is the one who can provide the highest quality of service for your child. Many newer members of the team can bring renewed enthusiasm and fresh ideas to the table. Their training may be more reflective of newer techniques and evidence-based models that can be explored. All teams need support, resources to meet the needs of each child. It is important to build relationships with the members of the IEP team, especially those members who are going to continue to be on the team for multiple years. Try not to burn bridges with people who you are going to need to be an ally, such as the special education coordinator. Now, that doesn't mean that you cannot advocate and push for services, just that you should always be respectful when doing so. Sometimes a parent has specific training to their child's disability that an educator may not have. While it is reasonable to expect that staff members have training that is relevant, as a parent, you can be a resource to them, sharing what you know about your child's disability. This can form a connection that also benefits the overall team. Be cautious as to how you request training for staff members, as it can be taken as a demand or as an insult to their education and experience. It may be better to bring up staff training individually to a special education administrator outside of the IEP meeting, so as to not put anyone on the spot or cause someone to feel inferior in their education. Remember, all teachers are in education to teach and help your child. Finally, we must remember our role and responsibility as a parent. Communicate with your child's teacher and related service staff regarding his or her progress. If you have concerns or questions, send an email to your child's teacher. Always start with the teacher. Don't go straight to the building principal or the special education director with problems. Give the teacher a chance to explain and correct any problems before taking it up the chain. Attend all meetings scheduled for your child and actively participate. If you need meetings to be scheduled at a specific time of day or a certain day of the week, let the team know. They are expected to be flexible in scheduling meetings. Help your child to generalize new skills at home and in the community. If your child's goal is to identify numbers, for example, have the child point out numbers in their environment, which will help them see that what they are learning on paper at school connects to real life. Advocate for your child. You will be the most consistent team member in your child's educational career. And believe it or not, teachers and school staff admire parents who fight to meet their kids' needs, even if that results in the school spending more money or time to meet those needs. When conflict arises, it's usually not because the school or teacher doesn't want to meet the needs, but rather because they disagree on how to meet those needs. Be an active participant in the creation of your child's IEP. You aren't included in these meetings for the sole purpose of being informed of what the team is going to do. You are included because your input is wanted and valued. Provide insight into your child's specific needs in order to create better outcomes. If you are withholding information because you think it'll make you look bad, the school isn't likely to be as successful in helping your child make progress. For example, if you tell the school that your child doesn't exhibit at home the undesirable behavior they're dealing with at school, when in fact he or she is, the school can't properly assess the function of the behavior. Share academic, developmental, and functional goals you have for your child. It is important for the team to know what you want for your child now and into the future. Now here's Rachel to share how to make sure that meetings stay student focused.
Dawn. Hi, everyone. So keeping the focus on the student is something that can be tough at times, especially if there's been conflict in the past, but it is so important to keep the entire team focused on the student. I always encourage parents and educators to set aside personal feelings and past experiences and really just focus on what the student needs right now to be successful and how we can work together to achieve that. One way to keep the focus on the student is to strive for student-led, self-determination based decisions. If it's possible, include the student in the discussion, even if not in the actual meeting. What do they feel like they need to be successful? What do they want? If the student won't be participating in the meeting, putting a photo of them on the table is a great way to keep the focus on the student. And you can check out www.imdetermined.org for more information and resources around that topic. So when you're walking into a meeting with the school, always try to assume best intentions. School staff may get overwhelmed by factors like budgets, staffing, available resources, but these issues are almost never personal, and they're likely working very hard to help your child, even when it doesn't seem that way. Even though this is very personal, treat the conversation like a business meeting and always be professional. Try to put aside negative feelings or experiences from the past and just think about the current issue. What does the student need now to be successful? And what evidence do you have to support the need is there? Try to separate what you want in an ideal world from what there is clear evidence of a need for. One way to do this is, when possible, send an email ahead of the meeting with your concerns. This prevents catching anyone off guard at the meeting and gives school staff time to research, get approvals, or secure funding. Read your email, then read it again before sending it. Is it clear and objective? And also, if you have special cultural considerations that you need the school to accommodate, be prepared to educate the staff on that need. It's especially helpful to have reasonable ideas and solutions ready to offer the team. And now I'll turn it over to Jacqueline to talk about how to handle those difficult conversations.
Thank you, ladies, for sharing so much great information thus far. We have all different perspectives, and we need to understand, verify, respect, and actually listen to other perspectives so we can focus on what is most needful. We are not going to always agree with everyone else all the time. So what happens when disagreement crops up, or how can we deal with difficult conversations that may need to happen to reach consensus? What to do when difficult conversations arise when children are struggling at school? What to do when a parent may not be willing to partner with the school? How do you, as a parent mentor, help parents to understand and help their children to be more successful at school? Listen. Listen with a purpose. Telling a person to change hardly ever works. I know I don't change. People almost never change without feeling heard and understood. So put your feet in their shoes and really listen to what they are saying. This comic strip is not listening. This cartoon really says a lot about how miscommunication happens. It is funny, but serious when you think you are communicating and you're either not saying exactly what you mean, or everyone assumes that we're all on the same page when we may not even be in the same book. Next, let's look at what it means to have good listening skills and strategies. Mirroring their speech means using phrases such as, what I hear you saying is this, or if I understand you, then you mean. You're clarifying by using the person's words to make sure you are all hearing what is actually being said. Acknowledge emotion by saying things like, I can see that you are very concerned that, or I think this makes you feel angry, or even help me to understand how this is making you feel. And then summarizing, putting the information into bite-sized pieces. How do you eat an elephant? One sandwich at a time, in bite-sized chunks. Bite size is manageable bits of information and will help you to hone down to what may be exactly the sticking point. Be sure to ask clarifying questions just to be sure we are all on the same page. And asking clarifying questions can be empowering. Keeping positive and productive problem solving is very empowering when done together. And finally, connecting. Try using an emotional connection. Parent mentors do this all the time. We understand the various emotions and intensities in a very real way, and we can help put that into words. This helps the team to process the issues at hand, and it can build relationships instead of polarizing the team. Build that connection by focusing on your common interests, not your positions. Every person at the table has a common interest that the student's need is addressed. Just remember, there may be differences in how it will be addressed. Positions are hard and fast and inflexible, but we look for the common interest and work to find the win-win. We look at the need and then work to figure out how this need can be met within the boundaries of the IEP team. Listen with the purpose of learning and understanding. Find out why does this person think the way they do, and can you help them to understand another point of view? So here are some strategies for de-escalation. First, again, listen. Don't argue or right fight. Listen. Just to clarify, right fighting is a form of violence or aggression because the right fighting pattern usually ends up one-sided and includes a winner and a loser. The effects are similar to those of physical or verbal abuse. Right fighting says, my perspective is right and yours is wrong. It's black and white. Next, keep your cool. Find strategies that allow you to stay calm and breathing. When you lose your temper, your brain starts to step down to your fight, flight, or freeze survival responses. Breathing and working to stay calm allows you to access the higher part of your brain, the one that can think and find solutions to problems. Try validating the emotions in the room. Acknowledging their emotion may help take the pressure off of the team. Very few people are able to face conflict without getting mad, sad, angry, or frustrated. Make sure you frame this validation as neutrally as possible. As Ashley says, we're Switzerland, be neutral. Acknowledging the difficulty that the team may be having can be a way of reaching greater understanding. Apologize. If I have been wrong, I apologize. Sometimes someone needs to hear a well-formed apology to bring closure to a situation and allow them to move on. Stay focused on the issue at hand. The issue at hand is always a student's need and how best to address it. Going off on bunny trails can lead to more trouble and loss of time to problem solve productively. Learn the difference between productive problem solving and just admiring the problem. Enlist their support. Ask for help when you need it. Research has shown that most people would rather grant a favor than ask a favor. Don't be afraid to ask for support on how to stay calm or problem solve. Ask focusing questions. This is the fine art at keeping positive problem solving going. Be respectful. Avoid sarcasm at all costs. A sense of humor is needed to really appreciate sarcasm, and it can be misinterpreted. Don't interrupt. The most important thing you can give to another person is your time and your attention. It says that I care about your concerns and I share in your interest. We've talked about how important it is to listen. Don't start rehearsing your response during their turn to talk. Your response will be better if you are listening. Give yourself time and space to be able to listen and stay calm. Remember, IEPs can always be reconvened if necessary. Building partnerships can be a bridge of understanding between members of a child's educational team to get from here to there. Partnership, a true partnership, is a journey that you are on with your partners. So take pride in how far you've come. Have faith in how far you can go, but don't forget to enjoy the journey. Now, Dawn will share some housekeeping before we open up for questions if time allows and the sharing of resources.
Wow, that was a lot of really great information. Of course, this session was recorded and will be available on the Parent Mentor website. We'd like to thank everyone for attending.